Mr. Ngwema, thank you very much for waking up with us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
How big a problem is this?
It was a huge problem about 2 years ago, but we started engaging with the schools, with the governing bodies, and in February last year we entered into an agreement. Firstly, some schools settled at the competition tribunal, schools like
What were these schools engaged in exactly?
You must remember our mandate is the Competition Act, and there were features in how the schools were dealing with their business that was in breach of the Competition Act. Exclusive contracts, part of no transparent bidding process, and in the end you find a situation where only one supplier was there, and the contracts were very long, in some instances about 40 years. And in terms of our own assessment, we believe that when you have more than one competitor, when you have more than one supplier, you give options to parents, then they can be able to look around for good prices, better prices, affordable prices, and better quality. But if they are stuck and we are forcing them to buy from one supplier, then there's a problem because they're only stuck with that. But also, there were many exclusive items on the uniform, which then raised the price of school uniform. So we have agreed that those must be kept to minimum, and generally school uniform must be generic. Simply
put, are you suggesting that there was some kind of collusion to muck up the price of uniforms?
At face value, you can say that. You can say that in some instances there were not necessarily collusion, but exclusivity or foreclosure of certain businesses, which then allow those businesses, one, to dictate prices, but also sometimes to change uniforms frequently and to add other unnecessary exclusive items, and that then brings up the price of the school uniform. So this is the problem that we find in terms of the Competition Act.
Are you confining yourself to the public sector schooling system? What about the independent schools, or your so-called private schools?
Actually, our investigation focused more on independent and private schools, and this is where we find that this was much more widespread than in the public school. However, it was beginning to creep in the public schools. The number of schools that have these exclusive contracts is intolerable, and therefore we have to deal with both. So that's why we're working with governing bodies, federation governing bodies, both independent and public, in order for us to be able to monitor and give oversight to the agreements that we have and the new regime that the department would have issued a circular long ago. So we agree with the department on the circular in terms of how schools should behave with regards to school uniform, and this is why we're working very closely with school governing bodies, because parents, you must remember, these governing bodies, they represent parents, and therefore it doesn't make sense that parents must be forced to pay more by the very same people that represent them. And this is why we are calling on parents to monitor the situation, to force their governing bodies to enter into a reasonable contract.
If a school, Mr. Ngwema, let's give a practical example. If a school has a shop within the premises that sells its school uniforms and whatever other apparels, is there a problem there?
Questions arise when it comes to those shops. How did the shop then how was the shop opened? Was there a competitive bidding process? You must remember, schools don't manufacture uniform. It is suppliers who do this. You would find that there's one person who has got exclusive rights to that particular shop, because schools' business is to educate. And therefore you find these suppliers, these companies who force schools or who are in cahoots with schools, and then they end up with these particular rights at school. So what we are saying is that you shouldn't, as a school, have one supplier. And then you must have an open bidding process so that even small businesses can be able to tender for your business. This is how parents then can be exposed to better quality and cheaper prices.
And so you're calling on parents to sound the alarm. Who do they contact, where and how?
Okay, firstly, we are requesting the parents to put pressure on the governing bodies because they represent them. Number two, if there's any governing body or retailer that is stubborn and refuses, because we are engaging with them right now, to contact us at www.compcom.co.za, www.compcom.co.za. There they will then be able to find forms where they can fill in and be able to alert us to the problem so that we can react as soon as possible. But I must say, though, the kind of cooperation that we're getting from the schools that we have been interacting with and the governing bodies is so remarkable, and we believe that it's a matter of time. You must remember, we need to clean up the situation. There are contracts already that are being phased out. Certain schools like Kuro, for example, have been able to terminate their contracts, and they're opening up the process in line with the guidelines that were issued by the department. So we are making progress. It's not an event, it's a process. We're hoping that with time, people are going to see the difference.
All right, Sipho Ngwema, thank you very much for your time. He's with the Competition Commission.